so thrilled. Everybody came out again. It's a little nicer now from the January one when it was dark and bleak and frozen in snow, and now the sun's setting after 8 o'clock. So clearly the summer's on its way, and the garden club had their sale, so that's a sure sign that summer's here on its way. I just again want to first thank the historical committee who does all this work on behalf of the borough. There's an enormity of work that goes into it. Even in a small borough, a lot of information exists here. So thanks to Chris, thanks to my wife Karen, and other members. Melanie's here, Mike is here. Any other members? I'm sorry I can't see that far, but thanks to all historical, Don, for all you do for keeping Watchung history alive. Again, thanks to my wife who baked. I'm not sure who else baked. Sue, you baked?
Of course.
Sue, my wife, as always. Part of the history of Watchung, and I think Melanie, not to call you out, but you're wearing one of the shirts. Part of the historical shirts that were made in the past few years had historical buildings within the borough. So again, Wilson Memorial was proudly placed on those shirts because it has been here longer than the borough. Things change over time, right? It's why it's important to capture our history, right? The Watchung Community Connection, everybody says that's great, right? And it's going to look a lot different. But we have the pictures inside now of what it was when it opened 50 years ago. We received over $366,000 from Somerset County to redo Camp Endeavor up on the end. So that has a rich history, right? Going back to when it was a camp for underprivileged children to come out to what was at the time the country of Watchung, right? I still think it's the country, but yeah, maybe a little closer to the city these days. But we'll be putting, not only redoing it, right, but part of that is like what you see over here on the east end of West Lake, where we have an infographic for all the riparian restoration product. There'll be a similar plaque there. So we want people when they show up to enjoy what's here now, but to understand the rich history that is Watchung. So one of the really exciting things, because it's our centennial, and I'm sure probably if you go on Wikipedia and thing, it says Watchung was, its anniversary is March 23rd, or April 1st, or April 15th, or April 23rd, or May 23rd. And all those, and we've gone through and done the research, right, and they all kind of mean something, but to me, going forward this year, we all agreed on council that the true beginning of Watchung should be when we had government representation. Here I'm showing you the copies, the original is there, from the basement of Borough Hall, believe it or not. The handwritten minutes for the first meeting of the Borough of Watchung, and I just want to read the first part because I think you'll find it interesting. The Borough of Watchung, May 24th, 1926. Minutes of the organization meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Watchung held on such date. Mayor Harold B. McDonald, sworn into office by Francis, I think it's E.B., Justice of the Peace and Reader. After which Mayor McDonald administered the oath of office to Charles E. Muldonkey, Edwin Corey, Edward Lewis, Richard Bellis, W.J. Paulson, and William H. Titus as councilmen. And at the first meeting, Dr. Charles Muldonkey was made president of council. So pretty cool that we have the actual history of the incorporation of the government of the Borough of Watchung. I'll tie it in because that building has been there since that period of time.
Thank you everybody for coming out. Before we get started tonight, we did want to invite Ralph Diem up to the podium here. Just have a few words about Barbara Diem. For those who didn't know, Barbara Diem passed away just recently on April 17th. She was instrumental in her contributions to the Watchung Historical Committee, and she was also a lifetime emeritus for the committee. So tonight we actually want to dedicate this program to her, and we invite Ralph up just for a few words.
Thank you for this evening. We're looking at Mayor likes to be challenged in reference to we're dating 100 years of being Watchung establishment. We're going back 209 years being in Watchung. And then that reflection, relations with Akron Miles family. And then with further history going, and my father passed, and then looking at his chronicle, historic ancestors, which are in Somerville, and then there are Cornelius. And then what I'm saying there is that where our seat and the Somerset County Courthouse, where that land was donated, so we could put the courthouse up. And then the rest of all history with Watchung, and then I like to have my brain picked anything and everything dating back 1917, being established and legit living in Watchung. Watchung's great, Watchung's good, and we're going to keep it going as long as we can. Thank you.
We have a very quick video, a little bit of the early families in Watchung, so we'll share that, and it includes a little bit of information about Barbara Diem. Before we do this, I'll remind you guys of places past and present in Watchung. So the theme for tonight's video and lecture series is called The Places That Shaped Us. And when we came up with the name as a committee for this event tonight, I couldn't help but think of all the places associated with Watchung, associated with a shape in Watchung. Both Valley View and Bayberry School had a U shape associated with them, whether it be the driveway or the school itself. And you might remember that from the program we did last time. Watchung Lake is more or less rectangular in shape if you look at it from an aerial. The Watchung Lake Dam has a crescent shape, as well as the 9/11 Memorial. Even the two gazebos of Watchung Lake shaped like an octagon. You might be familiar with the Watchung Circle, or maybe the Watchung Square Mall. We have the Watchung Triangle, and also Blue Star Mall. While I'm being silly here, there is some truth to Watchung being a place of many shapes. And while not all places associated that we're going to speak about tonight are associated with the shape, there are many places tonight we should be reminded of that exist and no longer are with us. So let's start with places that exist today. There is Weldon Quarry. We have our beloved Texture House, used previously for borough offices, police headquarters, and as a Texture family home. We have the Art Center, originally used as a schoolhouse, and interestingly enough, the second floor used to be the first floor of this original structure. There is Wetumpka Falls, but only the natural falls today returned to their natural state after the August 1973 flood that destroyed the concrete dam used at Wilson Stone Company. There is the Watchung Library, originally a residential home. The old structure is still with us, but as many of you know, it's being renovated today. We will speak about Valley Furniture and the Red Barn, a relic of the Pratt family and their well-known furniture business. There's the Eaton House, Barn, and former Milk House, now a residential home, for the Eaton Barn, and still exists on the Eaton property. The property and farm once extending to Eaton Road and to the other side of Valley Road up towards Brook Drive. There is Wilson Memorial Church, founded and built before we were incorporated as a borough, and of course St. Mary's Stony Hill. We know of Watchung Lake, the second lake to be constructed, to support ice cutting operations, one of the early industries in Watchung. There is also Best Lake, previously known as Wilson's Pond, and then Burnhead Lake, and now Best Lake. We know about the Municipal Borough Hall, the location of the old mill which served as a grist or flour mill, and also for glove manufacturing when the Texture family owned it. And of course there is God's Acre Cemetery next to Water and Wine. Now for places that no longer exist, and sadly this list is a little bit longer than the places that still exist today. There is the Honeymoon Flats, the building that used to be right in front of where the Rescue Squad building is today, some of Watchung's first rental apartments. There was Camp Elsinore, a camp established to help and support the young survivors who lost parents from the General Slocum disaster. We once had the beloved Camp Endeavor, which we'll explore tonight, a camp ahead of its time in accepting and inviting children with disabilities to camping opportunities in the Watchung Mountains. No list would be complete without mentioning Muldinkey's Castle, arguably one of the most famous buildings in Watchung, built by the Muldinkey family until it burned down in 1969. There was the Spencer Farm and Distillery. The same building used for the Spencer Farm and Distillery was believed to be owned also by Henry Gennard, who used the space for making reinforced glass. It was once known as, or it is believed to be once known as the Gennard Glass Factory. There was the beloved Grigsby's Nut Kitchen, the scents from the bakery dominating the Watchung Triangle and the surrounding area. It was once located where Marino's Pizza exists today. We of course cannot forget O'Connor's, previously known as Pet Foods. It was famous for its salad bar, and mushrooms were grown below the cellar of the building and sold as far as New York City. Mushroom farms were also existed on the Carrar property across from where O'Connor's is, or used to be, and was once considered as a fallout shelter for Watchung residents during the Cold War era. There, of course, is Brook Hill, known for its pool and tennis courts. It closed down sometime around 2019. There was the old mill that I mentioned before, also referred to once as French's Mill, where wheat was ground to make flour. And as mentioned before, was used for manufacturing gloves as well. This building the old mill was knocked down around 1929 to make room for the current Borough Hall today. There was the Phillips Farm, in the location where Phillips Field exists today, and there were 4 Phillips sisters, all whom have never married. There was the Acker Farm, the family of Barbara Diem's early relatives. There were ice houses at Watchung and Best Lake. Watchung Lake had one large ice house that burned down in 1933 in the vicinity of where the Tree of Lights is today, and Best Lake had a total of 5 houses on the south side of the lake. There was the Best House, their dock, boathouse, and tennis courts, all also located on the south side of Best Lake. We cannot forget the Washington House, previously known as David Stewart's Tavern and also Delmer's Hotel, dating back into the 1700s. We lost this structure also in a fire in 1962. Many residents might remember the Colorado Cafe, more recently known as Wally's Tavern on the Hill, previously before the Colorado Cafe. Not too long ago, there was a baseball field at Mobus Field, some might remember that. It was moved to relocate the playgrounds to get the existing playground out of the flood zone. Some might remember Take a Rest Tea Shop, now a residential home off of Sterling Road and Dogwood Lane. As mentioned earlier, we have Watchung Square Mall, the former location of Lockheed Martin. Roma Pizza, the Watchung Pharmacy, Walter's Plumbing, and the Confectionery, a place where you could get sodas, newspapers, candies, etc., were all located where Stratford Park or where the large Watchung sign exists today as you enter Watchung along Somerset Street. We had the Mountain View Resort and Hyde Estate, both off of Johnson Drive. And of course, there was Ray's Sport Shop. So by no means is this an exhaustive list of all the places that have existed and still exist, but tonight we'll focus on a few places through our videos, and I hope you guys enjoy.
You just thought about shapes. You're going to talk about diamonds, baseball fields in Watchung. Something that was very important to me growing up in Watchung was the Watchung Little League. My older brother, 6 years older, he actually was in the first Watchung Little League in 1962 when he was 9 years old. And he grew up teaching me the game. I could not wait to play Little League baseball. I went to his games for several years. And a quick story about my trying to get into the Little League a little early. So I had one of those late birthdays, and I was in second grade. Everybody's getting ready to play Watchung Little League, and I was told I was too young. You can't play. Well, down the street from me, Mr. Wilkins was the president of the Little League, On my own, I went down the street, knocked on the door. Mr. Wilkins came out and said, Mr. Wilkins, I need to talk to you. I want to play baseball. He took me out to the porch. He explained to me this was a Little League rule. The cutoff was July 31st. Because your birthday's not until November 20th. So there's nothing we can do about it. Well, following year, I finally got to play. And I remember my team was the Senators. That was a major league team out of Washington, D.C., for those of you who aren't that old enough to remember that. And I remember being on Mr. Winslow's team. And he was a tremendous manager, great person to learn the game from. And we practiced every Saturday and Sunday, except Mother's Day and Easter, at Bayberry School. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the fields we played on. And I started pitching when I was 8 years old. I was hoping I would pitch at Shea Stadium someday, but 25 years later, I was still pitching in Watchung, but in the men's softball league, pitching underhand. So we had fields at Bayberry School, and then we also had 2 fields at Runnels Hospital property, at Valley Road and Plainfield Avenue, right on the Berkeley Heights border. And something to know about the lower Runnels field was there was a steep slope in the outfield going down. So if you were playing outfield at Runnels, lower Runnels, the manager told you whatever you have to do, you have to block the ball so it doesn't roll all the way to the fence, because that would be an easy home run for anybody. And then we also played at Mobis Field, it was Brookdale originally called. That was kind of the premier place to play. This is in the Little League was from age 8 to 12. We started at age 8. We didn't have any T-ball, and we didn't have any coach pitch. We went right into baseball when we were 8 years old. The kids pitched and did remarkably well, but we had grown up throwing the ball, batting on our own without parental supervision. This was the first time we actually had parental supervision and umpires. And the umpires were all volunteers. It's amazing, the community. I'll tell you how many teams we had. We had 6 teams in what they called the minors, 4 teams in the intermediate, 6 teams in the majors, and then as I got older, I was glad to find they put together a 13 to 15-year-old league called the Senior League. So think about all those kids playing, 250 to 300 kids playing baseball in Watchung. So we had the 2 Phillips fields, it was north and south, and that later turned into the 3 fields. I think if I have the names right, Ost, Grant, and Barrett, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it right. And that was fantastic. And as we were 13 to 15-year-olds, we played at Valley View School and also Watchung Hills. And as time went on, 1969, the men's softball league was established. Also, there was a ponytail league going on. I don't know the full history of the ponytail league, but the girls had a softball league in town. The men's softball league was a way for members of the community, many of the great volunteers in the community, to have this fun exercise and social time. And the Optimus Club had a team, the Lions Club had a team, St. Mary's Stony Hill had a team. They were called the Holy Rollers. The fire department had a team, the police department had a team, and there was a bunch of young guys, they called themselves the Young Turks. They had a team. Later on, Wilson Memorial had a team. Reverend Ron Miller decided that we should be called the Good News Bears. And we ultimately developed the team, and in 1982, we won the championship for the Watchung men's softball with a relatively new team from Lockheed. Some employees of Lockheed found out that there was a softball league in town, and they came down to Borough Hall and said, hey, we'd like to get into the softball league. And we have a field you guys can use. There was a softball field on the Lockheed property. It was the one field that had a fence where you could actually contemplate hitting a home run over the fence. And believe me, everybody tried to do that. I didn't hit one. I do remember giving up one when I was pitching, though. It was kind of like, oh, there it goes. So it was, later on, I had the opportunity in my early 20s to coach a couple senior league teams in town, which was just a great opportunity that Jerry Mobis gave me. So through the years, I have to say that the ability to play baseball from age 8 to 13, and then also the men's softball, like a lot of guys my age, I played into my 30s, and it was just a great opportunity. But all in all, though, I think back to all the formation of the Little League and how it just grew and grew and grew, how the fields were built. There was a lot of fundraising that went into the construction of the current Little League complex. We didn't have any bathrooms in any of the fields in town. There was no concession stand, and that's just remarkable. I know baseball isn't as popular by any stretch of the imagination as it once was, but I'm glad to know that kids are still playing.
My kids played on T-ball, my wife and I played, and then it was still a pretty large league, and then it really dropped off over the past recent years. In fact, about 3 years ago, when I first became mayor, I guess 23, there were like 4 teams and maybe 20 kids. But we wanted to keep the field, so through donations, the snack shack was restored. We named it after, or honored Anthony Volpe, Watchung's own. Somebody made it to the majors from Watchung, right?
Yeah.
And we're proud of that. And I actually heard today he's been called back up to the
Yes, he
majors.
has.
So he'll be back on. Yes. Yeah, Cabrera got injured, so he got called up. So that's good news. And again, and listen, I gave him the key in the proclamation because we celebrate our youth, right? It shouldn't always be at the end of your career, right? So we celebrate all things. I will say that baseball is alive and well. We partner now with Warren, and opening day this year was finally a nice day. The past 3 years it was dreary each day, and there were a few hundred kids. So it's alive and well. Last year was kind of great because the past mayor, Lisa Monte, so she's like, you gotta get Anthony Volpe to do. So Anthony made a video, and when the kids were all, and we did pitch, and then we brought them in. It was raining. She brought a pickup truck and had a tarp, and I forget the gentleman's name who helped on the video, but it was like put me in coach and all the fun baseball montage. And she's like, are these kids really gonna know who Anthony Volpe is? I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're gonna know. And then it stopped, and then he came on, and the roar of the children in the field. So I'm proud to say baseball's still alive and well between both our communities, and that was one of the highlights of my entire existence with that. So this year we did a little different because Anthony was rehabbing, so we sent him a video. I had all the kids on the field at one time shout, "Get well soon, Anthony," back to him. So again, this is the one wonderful thing about this community.
We know I have a little history here, and that's the very brief part of that, is living here and the fact that I'm standing in a spot where I grew up. This is, if you saw the one picture with a little tiny house next to the church, that was my first 4 or 5 years of life, and just amazing. But the focus on baseball is what prompted me to get out of the chair. My favorite recollection of baseball, exactly, you know, is playing with the fire department team, and the fact that I can say, among others, that I played baseball against Bobby Thompson.
Another favorite.
That is my favorite history of anything to do with sports anywhere. And every time I watch my favorite MASH episode, which I've seen a few times, and when they do the shot as part of that, with him hitting the shot heard around the world, it's just opens up my heart and say, wow. That's my favorite. That's my favorite thing about it. My pride about dealing and being part of Bobby Thompson, and the fact that his ashes are out in this garden out here. It's, keeps us very close.
I'll share very briefly a couple of places in Watchung that I have memories of. I start with probably Mobus Field, believe it or not. I spent countless hours and days when we had summer camp there for years, whether it be, under the pavilion or climbing all of the trees that we shouldn't have along Mobus Field, that we got in trouble on many of times, or fishing as well at Mobus Field. That was a great memory of mine. I also think about all the places all the homes of my friends who I've made throughout Watchung and over the years, and spending the time with them in each of their individual homes has been a treasure. And so still, sometimes people move away and I still have memories, and I walk past the house and I'll be like, I have all these memories of, spending and growing up with my friends, and so that's another, there's many places and homes that I have memories of. I have a very interesting memory of Best Lake that Sue Tucker knows all too well. I have been in where most people have not, most of the Boy Scouts have been, in the bottom of Best Lake. When we put in the fish shelters as part of a really cool project with Fish and Wildlife back in 2008 when they redid Best Lake. So that's another really cool memory. And honestly, I have to say, just Watchung Lake as a whole, all the number of people that I've met just walking around Watchung Lake when, you know, many of you guys remember my little dog Chloe, and all the chats that I've had around people and all the people that I've met, I owe a lot to Watchung Lake as well.
One of the things that I think is really special about Watchung is Johnston Drive. The view from Johnston Drive has fascinated me my whole life. And there's somebody here who's lucky enough to live on that view. I just think it is unique. It's so gorgeous. And at some point this year, I'll do a program on the history of Johnston Drive, the camps, the very avant-garde contemporary homes, the resort that used to be at the top of it. But the view from Johnston Drive is something very special about Watchung.
I grew up in the early 70s on High Oaks Drive. Anyhow, was anybody here a member of the Watchung Lake Swim Club? Well, we were members, kind of. We swam there at night. So
The after hours club.
the thing about it was the police department was at the texture house. And the way to swim there at night was to sneak up from the dam side, wade in and swim out to the docks. So that's how it was done. So my cousin Clayton from LA was visiting, and my brother Chris and I thought that he should see our swim club. So you didn't want to park in the parking lot, which was basically the village green, because, you know, the cops would see there's a car down there. Maybe the kids are up there. So we decided to park on Spencer Lane and walk our way over. So we get to the bottom of Hillcrest, and the cop pulls up. And he rolls his windows down and he said, you guys wouldn't be going to swim in Watchung Lake, would you? Now, mind you, we're in swimming trunks, and two of us had towels. And so, you know, in unison, no. You know? And he looked straight at us and said, "That's good, I didn't think so." Anyhow, and then he drove away. And so we thought about this for a second, and then we thought that the brevity of the interrogation and the fact that he left the scene was a green light. So we went there, you know, climbed up by the dam, waded out, and hung out on those docks. It was very peaceful to be there at night. And then you also felt you were kind of, you know, defying authority a little bit because the police department was right down there. Anyhow, that was one of my favorite memories of growing up in Watchung.